Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by an impact fee technician who lists their favourite movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street and favourite TV show as Golden Girls. Welcome to the show, Corrina Mabey.
Hello.
First new episode of 2025.
Yes, happy New Year-ish.
Well, technically this won't be the first new episode when it publishes.
That's the new episode for me.
It's the first one we're recording, but it will be like the fifth. So this week, we blend our loves for horror and wrestling by reviewing the new wrestling-themed horror film, Dark Match, starring Chris Jericho, Ayisha Issa, and Steven Ogg. In Dark Match, a small-time wrestling company accepts a well-paying gig in a backwoods Canadian town, only to learn that the community is run by a mysterious cult leader with devious plans for their match. The premise being that the mysterious cult leader, known as the Prophet, feels spurned by this wrestling company in the past, so now he is seeking revenge and attempting to prove that wrestling isn't fake, it's about showmanship and sacrifice. Cast-wise, so we have Steven Ogg from The Walking Dead, GTA 5, Better Call Saul, Snowpiercer, so on and so on. Chris Jericho from All Elite Wrestling, Terrifier 2 and 3. Ayisha Issa from Warm Bodies. Michael Eklund from The Call, another wrestling movie, See No Evil 2, or wrestling-adjacent horror movie.
Yes.
Bates Motel and Altered Carbon. Sarah Canning from The Vampire Diaries and Superhost. And Jonathan Cherry from Final Destination 2, directed by Lowell Dean. What did you think of Dark Match before we dive into it and dig into the details?
It's something. It's something. To be fair, aside from Chris Jericho, I didn't know anybody who was in this film. But now that you're saying what they've been in, I'm like, oh, that's why I know them. Like, I recognize them. I just don't recognize their names.
Yeah, Steven Ogg is a very recognizable person. He's a very unique looking human being.
Yeah. This movie for me is a very consistent Shudder movie. For me, it's one of those, it felt like one of those, like, I want to be a cheesy grade B / grade C horror movie. So it was fun to watch, but I'm not gonna revisit it or recommend it probably to anybody.
That's fair. I wrote down my initial reaction were classic blood-soaked, gory B-grade horror film.
Yeah.
It just like happens to be centered around wrestling, so that's what really drew me in. I was like, oh, wrestling horror movie. Sounds good. And yeah, it's fine. Surprisingly, the wrestling action sequences, very basic.
Yeah.
I expected a lot more from the actual action sequences.
Yeah, it was very like run-of-the-mill, like just normal bullshit. Like there wasn't anything spectacular about it. And then the only thing that was honestly memorable about the matches was the dark matches that they ended up having.
Yeah, the stipulations, like the actual matches weren't anything to write home about. It was just some basic like punches and kicks, and I don't even think they threw like many suplexes or anything.
No, there was no real like. There was like one high diving kind of moment, and then that was about it.
Yep.
It was definitely, for it to be like kind of marketed as a horror wrestling themed movie. I think I saw more wrestling moves in Echo than I did in this in this movie.
Yeah, for a wrestling horror movie, there's not a lot of wrestling. It's all the stuff that happens outside of the actual ring.
I think it's more like it's a wrestling themed movie. It shouldn't be like a portrayed as an actual like wrestling horror movie. It should just be like a horror movie with wrestling elements to it, or like a nod to wrestling at that point.
Which of that, there are a lot of nods and Easter eggs to wrestling if you are like a long-term hardcore wrestling fan. There's callbacks to 80s wrestling and 90s like ECW era stuff. A lot of these characters are quite clearly inspired by pro wrestlers, like famous pro wrestlers.
Yeah. They did a pretty good job, I will say, of capturing the era that they're in with this. You know, between the outfits and the hints of like racism that you see throughout the movie, and just the style of wrestling in general and what was accepted back in the 80s versus like nowadays. So I give them a lot of credit for capturing that.
Yeah, I wrote set in 1988, very sort of caricature style wrestling characters with very silly 80s wrestling names too. Like Steven Ogg plays a character named Joe Lean.
Yep.
One of the only two female wrestlers in the movie is Kate the Great.
Yeah.
And her counterpart is Miss Behave.
Yeah. It's very very campy. But for that time that was a thing.
Chris Jericho plays the Prophet, who is like a cult leader. So yeah, of course he's going to be called the Prophet. And then there's another guy called Enigma Jones. He's just like a generic masked luchador.
Yeah. It was very interesting, their choice of wrestling names, but it fits the time period.
And yeah, like you said, it's sort of a pretty accurate depiction of like late 80s, early 90s wrestling, like the racism, the
sexism,
quite blatant sexism with the match that the women are placed into. Drug use and partying running rampant as well. I was like, oh yeah, this is wrestling in the 80s.
Yeah, where no one remembered anything.
And then like the faces and the heels when they're traveling to the show, each group travels in separate vans. So they uphold that idea of kayfabe where everything that's happening is real. So the good guys can't travel with the bad guys and stuff like that, except for the one crossover between the girls. So they're not separated.
Yeah.
And like we said, filled with a ton of wrestling Easter eggs for hardcore wrestling fans. So it takes place in rural Canada, which sort of echoes the really iconic or notorious death tours that were run by Tony Condello, which is basically them like going out into the really sort of remote territories and running shows, but like having to travel across the frozen lakes and stuff like that. So it's like very dangerous to get out to these places. Well, not so much now that we know how frozen lakes work, but yeah, back in the day, it was just like, I guess it's frozen enough to drive on it.
Let's try and find out.
Like they check and before they send the cars and the ice road truckers out there.
Yeah, now it's let's make sure. Let's test it. Like tiptoe. Oh no, it's kind of cracking. Let's go back.
Yep. Yes, I liked that little reference. And like I said, a lot of the characters and even the match types are inspired by well-known real-life wrestlers or events. So there's a tag team in this called the Beast Bros, who are quite clearly inspired by the Road Warriors with the sort of leather and the spikes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yep, that's definitely a Road Warriors nod. Their opponents are known as the Bible Bashers, who quite clearly were inspired by the group Right to Censor, who was just like this 90s WWF group who would come out and like try and cover up the women and stop everyone from swearing and stuff like that. So I was like, oh yeah, that's who these guys are. During the matches that we get, so we get 5 matches in the movie. There's a match that is the Earth match, which is essentially a Type A death match, which is taken from a 1995 ECW event, which had Ian Rotten versus his brother Axel Rotten in this match type where they cover their hands in glue and
Glass.
tape and then dip that into broken glass. And
Ugh,
I've watched that match.
it's brutal.
It's full on.
Yeah, it's fucking brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Which is another like thing. Like it's a movie. I wish they'd kind of really focused on those things, like that match, and then we also see an Inferno match, which has been held 3 times throughout history, featuring Kane in all of them against The Undertaker in 98, Triple H in 99, and MVP in 2006. That match is even shorter. Like,
yeah.
the guy misses his opening attack and immediately catches on fire and is burnt to a crisp. Like, oh.
Yeah, these were for something being so like sinister and like you're supposed to like really work for the sacrifice and like beat each other to sensual death. They were a bit lackluster in those elements. Like I expected a lot more from the that earth fight. Like way more bloodshed and shit like that. And it was just like, oh, I'm gonna punch you a couple times and then I'm gonna like jab you in the gut and you're gonna die. And then yeah, the Inferno match was like, I feel like that was almost like an afterthought. Like that match was supposed to be in my thought process, that match was supposed to be like the big gigantic match. Like that was supposed to be one of the ultimate ones. And it was just like a whole 2 minutes, not even. And I'm like,
yeah, I wonder if it was like severely edited for like time or something. Because yeah, he misses his opening move and runs into the corner and gets lit on fire. Oh, that was it. Okay.
yeah. And like, no offense, like I know this is a Shudder film, but like their budget was awful, I'm guessing, because there was just so much bad when it came to like the effects and the editing and the practical effects. Like I just it was rough. Parts of this were really rough.
And it also like flies in the face of the whole sort of premise of the movie too, with the Prophet trying to prove that wrestling is not fake, like it's about showmanship, and we really don't get that because the matches are so short and basic.
They are, and it's like they're not even like really extravagant deaths. Like I don't know, like even the girls match with the water, like I thought that was going to be a lot better. Like I figured that she'd try and like hold her face in the puddle of water and drown her or something, and instead it's just like, I'm gonna snap your neck. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of, and even the 5 matches, we open with the wind match, which is basically a standard tornado tag team match, which makes sense. But in the center of the ring, there's a big like opening with a giant fan.
Yeah.
But then it has a grate over it, so that kind of defeats the purpose.
Right.
And then like you would expect the match to sort of get to the point where someone like peels that grate back, or really there should not have been the grate there. It should have just been like
you have to fight around it and throw somebody in it.
Like plastic or something that you could like drive someone through.
Or glass, like even have like a glass enclosure with it and just like smash the glass.
Yeah. And then like the big like finale of that match could have been like someone being like power bombed into the glass and then through the fan. But yeah, none of that happens. It's kind of just like he gets like slashed or something. Yeah. Oh.
Or yeah, it's like some kind of like thing where like they slash his throat with like a wire or something. I don't remember. It was pretty rough. It was cheesy, which is expected, but like it could have been done so much better.
Yeah, I just feel like the matches, like you said, were an afterthought. They didn't go into it with the sort of the Saw mentality of like, how can we make this kill
right
outrageous and mind-blowing but still like realistic. Like I don't think I've ever watched a Saw movie where the trap didn't look feasible in like the real world.
Yeah.
Like some of them are totally outrageous, like the one like the cross where they like rip the person in half. Like outrageous, but still believable, and not the one where they put the ring through his jaw.
Or even as simple as the girl trying to get the antidote and she cuts her wrists all up in the fucking razor blade box. Like those are extravagant, but they're still believable. Whereas like this, what really I think what really bothers me about the matches that they had in these movies, with the exception of the Inferno thing, because that guy actually did catch on fire, none of the other matches had anything to do with the element that it was supposed to embody. Like, they
Well,
threw
yeah, the
some dirt
kill.
in the they threw some
The
dirt in the
water
middle of
had
the match.
water in it, but it
It
was
didn't,
just
like
sprinklers.
yeah, it didn't, like, like, it didn't really, like, encapsulate, like, the whole element. Like, in my head, when I'm thinking of an element match, like, okay, wind, so you're gonna get fucked up by, like, the wind tunnel, or, like you said, the fan, get chopped up. The water, she's gonna fucking find a way to drown her bitch and, make her suffocate or something like that. And then, like, the earth element, like, oh, you're gonna eventually, like, bury that person.
Yeah, it should have been a buried alive match, not a type A death match.
Right. So none of the matches really encompassed any of the elements that they were supposed to. And I was like, if this is supposed to be like some part of your sacrifice, you're doing a really piss poor job of it.
Yeah, like the concepts didn't match up to the names, and then
Mm-mm.
the execution of the matches didn't match the whole concept of the film.
Yeah, it bothered me.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, as I'm sure Jeremy Lambert will tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUS WRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
So match 2 was the water match, which was the women's match, which kind of a little bit sexist, and again playing into the divas era type thing where the women are essentially in a wet t-shirt match.
Yeah. 100%. And it's, it was annoying.
Yeah, the only thing that would have been more on the nose is if they made them wear white t-shirts.
Yes. Yep.
But they just went out there in regular wrestling gear. Oh, okay.
Also, the storylines, like the side story that they had going on, or like that eventually was revealed, where like Kate the Great is somehow related to the Prophet. Why? How? That was never mentioned before. Again, it's like another afterthought where they were like, oh, this sounds
And why
like a
would
cool
you put
idea.
your daughter in that situation?
Yeah. It was like nothing was ever alluded to that, like no mention of it before. And it's just like all of a sudden, no, now it's his daughter and he's really mad. Okay. I was like,
And like,
where
did she know?
this? Yeah. Like, is it your estranged daughter? Does she know that she's related to you? Like, they didn't go anywhere with it. And I was like, why did they even bother like putting that in there? Like, he could have been enraged by something else, like for the fact that he, I don't know, lost his belt with the original match that he got pissed off about. Like,
Yeah, like he already had a justifiable in his mind reason for bringing them into this. We didn't then need to ramp it up with his daughter being killed. Like, okay.
yeah. I was just like, why bother with that? Like, it's not necessary. It was just like an underlying story that just never went anywhere. And I was like, this makes zero fucking sense, but okay.
And yeah, like it could have just been because we find out at that point that the faces have sort of all been clued in on what's going on here, that these matches are being filmed and sold. There is this sort of sacrificial element because all the faces know one of these people has to die in every match. It could have just been that like, oh, they got there earlier. She'd been informed of this. They had some sort of weird connection like earlier in the day, like sexual or whatever. And then that's why he was pissed off that the girl that he like fancied died. It didn't need to be his daughter. It was just a weird
Afterthought
segue that they've tossed in there. Like, oh, okay, I don't get why that needed to be there.
Yeah, I was just so confused when he's like, oh, my kid. Because I was like, when did that happen? Like, what? Huh? I was literally scratching my head for 5 minutes. I was like, did I even mishear that? Like, did he Whatever.
Initially, I was like, wait, is she his daughter? And then, like, they confirm it. I was like, what?
When? When was that discussed?
Yeah, so that was weird. And then, yeah, we went into that Type A death match, which was sort of covered on the glass. And, yeah, that should have been a Buried Alive match. And then that would have fit in with the Earth motif.
Element, yeah.
The Inferno match, pretty self-explanatory. Someone gets burned to death. At least that match fit with the concept.
Yeah.
It's just that the execution
That's awful.
didn't play into the overall theme of the film being showmanship, because there is no showmanship. It's just like, dodge, you're dead, I win. Like,
yeah, oh, like, okay, what the fuck?
Whereas if, like, you go back and you watch those original WWE, or I'm pretty sure they were E, it might have been F at the time. Those original Inferno matches on that programming, they are a sight to behold. They are insane. They are outrageous. There's flames shooting up from the sides of the ring, and you're like,
it's
I don't know how they did that and didn't get, like, totally fucked up.
Yeah.
And then you see, like, there was an Elimination Chamber match that The Undertaker was in, and he got more fucked up in his entrance on that because someone set the pyro off before he was, like, past the safe spot, and it, like, burnt all up his arm. And he's you see him in the pod waiting to come into the match, just, like, pouring bottle after bottle of water down his arm, like, fuck.
Jesus.
But then, yeah, a full-on Inferno match where they have flames shooting off the posts and up the sides of the ring.
Yep.
Nobody really got that badly burnt.
No.
Okay, cool.
And then the finale, the final match, what was that? The Spirit? Was that what it was supposed to be called? The Spirit match?
The Spirit match.
Also lackluster, because they have this set up like a barbed wire cage match kind of thing going on. Why? And
nobody climbs the cage. The barbed wire doesn't get used. It's just there.
Yeah, they just put it up for no fucking reason. Like, yeah, let's just throw a cage around this for shits and giggles. And the way that they put the cage around it, they, like, put it panel by panel, and I'm like, what?
To be fair, I've seen cage matches at indie wrestling, and that's how it's done.
Oh, is it? Okay, well, I'm pretty sure that they probably bolted it together better.
It's only WWE and AEW where they lower it because that's an endeavor. Most, like, indie wrestling, it's like, oh, we're going to intermission, and during the intermission you just see a bunch of trainees come running out with big, like,
panels of fence,
2 panels for each side of the ring. They bring them out, they put them up, and then they shackle them together, and you're like, oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
This didn't even look like they were shackled, though. It just looked like they literally stood them up next to each other and was like, all right, let's hope this stands.
Maybe. I will say, though, that was perhaps Chris Jericho's best match in quite a while. Which is kind of saying a lot.
To be fair, his hair was pretty on point in this movie in comparison, because he's been looking a little frail up at the top, and this was pretty full, so good for him. But yeah, he looked pretty okay in the match for as long as it lasted, which wasn't long.
The advantage of being able to cut and edit and redo stuff, it's not a live match there.
Yeah.
Watching his recent match on Ring of Honor's Final Battle last year against Cardona, that was rough.
Yeah, I think,
like, you could tell Cardona was doing all the work and Jericho was just kind of there going through the motions. It was like, oh, Jesus Christ. You're supposed to be the Ring of Honor world champion. You should be out there busting your ass, and you're just, like, doing your bit.
Yeah, as sad as it is, like, because I grew up watching the likes of Chris Jericho when I was little, it was mind-boggling to me when I first got back into wrestling that he was even still in wrestling. But to be say, like, I said the same exact thing about Sting, and, you know, I was like, I can't believe that these people are still at it with how long they've been, because I'm in my 30s, and I was watching them when I was like 5 and 6. So the fact that they're still doing this job that they love so much, it's great. However, there is, like, they are starting to show their age, and I feel like a lot of it now is like they should just probably focus on, like, the new generation and, like, helping them out, which they do a pretty good job of doing, most of them. But it's just like, when do you call it, like, enough and stop trying to be the greatest and stuff.
To be fair, I will give Sting credit. Like, he didn't
Sting's
wrestle
fantastic.
a lot in AEW, but when he did, he went all out. Like, he went balls to the wall. He was
he was
diving
Sting.
off balconies and stuff. I was like, holy, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't know how his body's not broken.
Late 60s, there's no need to do that, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's a good match. At least he was giving us good performances. Jericho's just going out there and being like, going through the motions. He's definitely put on a lot of weight recently. He was looking fit when he was the AEW World Champion, and now he's just kind of there and got big again. Every time he goes for the lion salt these days, I'm like, you almost dead.
Yeah, and it's like Sting was fantastic, but I think it's because he didn't have as many matches later on in his career. He was there to kind of like support Darby for the most part. He was like that mentor kind of leader. And I think that's the difference, is because they pushed Jericho so much to like be in these matches because he wants to do this and he wants to do that. And all the power to you. But when you're not in the best shape and you're starting to get tired and winded and people can tell, then that's when you probably need to take a step back and just say, hey, you know what, I need some time off, let me just chill, work on my stuff, I don't know, put out another fucking album with Fozzy for all I care. Like,
I'm surprised. He should be due for it too soon.
Yeah. So, and like I think that's why I think I appreciated when Danielson, even though Bryan's not nearly as old as fucking Jericho is, he did take that step back and he was like, I'm at that age where I want to be happy with my family and I want other younger generations to be showcased now. So, it's one of those things. It's a very touch and go kind of situation, but I don't know. Jeff Jarrett, for the most part, Jeff Jarrett looks in better shape than fucking Chris Jericho is. And I never thought I'd fucking say that because I hate that man to death. He is fucking annoying as shit. But like, he's growing on me now. Fucking Christ, the fucking ambulance man. Let me tell you. But like, I feel like this is his last run now, and he's kind of accepting that. And I think it's graceful the way he's going out with it. Like, he wants to do the best thing, but he kind of has the understanding, like, I'm not going to be around forever doing this because my body can't fucking take it. But he looks in way better shape than fucking Jericho does right now. And like I said, I hate that man.
Yeah. I think Jericho's problem is he's still trying to do the matches that he was doing 4 or 5 years ago, and even like before that, like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And like, he's still trying to hit that lion salt, and his body is not up for hitting it as cleanly as he used to. And like, adapt your style.
Yeah.
Like, Sting adapted his. It was just very like basic ground and pound, a couple of like corner splashes, and it worked. Whereas Jericho's still trying to do the cruiserweight Jericho match. It's like, you're not a cruiserweight anymore, and you're also like 50.
Like, you didn't see, like, to be fair, Sting had some crazy matches towards the end of his like career and stuff like that, but you didn't see him like going like, oh, I want a barbed wire match, oh, I want like this full blown out brawl thing where like we're just gonna go balls to the walls and beat the shit out of each other kind of thing. Like,
yeah, he's not trying to run around doing 450s and moonsaults and stuff. He's just basic moves.
Yeah, but and like, he knows that, and he knows his limitations. So I feel like this is just, maybe this is a good transition. Maybe we'll start seeing Jericho try and do more movies or like just other parts of his like talents, and then maybe like just pump the brakes a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I would like him to just kind of step back a little bit in the learning tree stable thing that he has at the moment, and let like the Big Bills and Brian Keith, like, let those guys shine. Let them go out there and do the matches because they're amazing.
Yeah. And you're not a young spring chicken anymore.
Yeah, Big Bill's match against Adam Copeland last week was awesome. Let him do that more.
Yeah.
And then like, Jericho can just be the promo guy, but then even his promos recently with this learning tree thing have been
rough. They've been a little rough. I don't know, like, I feel like when the Jericho Appreciation Society was happening, like, that was the slow start to the plateau downfall of everything.
Yeah. Inner Circle was peak Jericho in AEW, and now it's just been the same thing over and over again. Jericho with a group of younger guys, but somehow Jericho's still the focus. Like, let the younger guys be the focus, Chris.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but I mean, it's directive style. Who knows? But I don't know. It would just be nice to maybe see him just take a couple steps back and not have him shoved down our throats all the time.
So then back to Dark Match. Something we need to discuss is the ending of Dark Match.
What ending? This was not an ending. This was
the absolutely outrageous,
this was crap.
dumb ending where one of the surviving cultists completes the ritual with Enigma Jones's dead body, thus summoning the demon/devil that they were trying to summon, which turns out to be a giant green devil-like creature who goes out and confronts the escaping wrestlers in the middle of the road as they're driving away. We see Misbehave get out of the van, squares up to the devil with her chain, ready to fight, and we fade to black.
That's it. Yeah, so many things wrong with this.
What?
So, like, the lady who completes the ritual, don't know how she survived that gunshot, because that was at like point blank range and like right in her fucking abdomen where she would have just bled the fuck out. There's no way she would have gotten from that house all the way to where the fucking ring was, crawling to the fucking basement area where these bodies were, and like had them all lined up perfectly and lit the extra fucking candle without fucking dying first. Like, sorry, just not happening.
And drag the other body into position to do it.
It's not happening with a gunshot went to your fucking spleen or something like that. Who knows? That was irritating. Also, how did she know the proper steps to do a ritual? Like, aren't these ritual things supposed to be really complicated? Like, you have to read from a book and like do things in order. Like, that never happened. Not that like that never happened. And then the fucking devil Satan spawn thing, it
Yeah, the CJ looked bad, but just I was like, what? We never had any like mention of this before. What the fuck is going on?
Awful. It was absolutely atrocious. Like, it looked like it wanted to be part of the Alien franchise, and then it was also like part of Splice, and it had like kind of horns and then little baby horns and a really weird face and like not really making sense tail thing, and it had hooves but not real. It was so dumb.
You know what it reminded me the most of?
What?
The devil from Tenacious D's tribute music video.
It's so bad. So bad. Like,
yeah, it's this giant green devil. I was like, why is it green?
Yeah, it looked like one of those lizard people. It looked like one of the lizard people from like V or whatever it was called. Like, it was just so atrociously done, and like the CG was just absolutely awful. Like, good to know that they did not spend their budget on CG, because that, if they did, they need to fire that person. Like, it was god awful. And then just like the fact that it somehow found them, like you see the earth shattering below them, and it's like this apocalyptic kind of thing. But the audible groan that I made was ridiculous.
What was her plan there? Like, you're just gonna fight a supernatural giant demon with just a chain? I think you're gonna lose.
Yeah, like, it was awful. Like, absolutely terrible. Like, I thought the ending of Midnight or Late Night with the Devil was bad. No, this made that look fantastic.
I honestly think I would have preferred if like the whole religious thing was just like a veil for the prophet and what he was doing, and it was just more like the actual reasoning for this was kind of like Hostel, where there's just like this shadow group of like rich people that just like watching these like real life death matches.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't need the devil. Like, it just kind of pulled me out of the ending. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That's
like, if you're going to do a movie about the satanic rituals and stuff like that, at least do your homework and research, and maybe look at other movies that have done it better, and just kind of maybe go off of that and don't go AWOL and make a fucking green alien looking demon thing, because it's not giving me those kind of vibes.
Yeah, there was just a lot they tried to cram into this, and it doesn't all gel. Like, I think it just needed maybe another one or two passes over on the script to really tighten things up, really refine it a bit more. And then, like, yeah, some of those matches probably needed another wrestling brain to come in and take a look and, like, which is weird because, like, Jericho knows wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he read this script and go, oh, maybe do a buried alive match, not a type A death match?
Yeah.
Like, you can still use the glass in a buried alive match, but have the outcome be someone has to be buried alive, not stabbed in the stomach.
Yeah, it was just very odd. And, like, thank God this movie was only like an hour and a half, because I feel like if they had added any additional time to it, we would have gotten just some more outlandish, nothing makes sense kind of stuff. Like, she would have ended up having like a superpower chain, like the chain was like a holy chain and it fucking sent the devil back to hell or something like that. Like, some outrageous bullshit would have happened. So I'm grateful that it was only an hour and a half. I just wish that the ending was not a standoff and then that's it.
The one, like, positive was the overall outcome of these matches was that, like, the black woman finally got to hold the championship belt, which is very modern and, at that time, the 80s, incredibly rare in wrestling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so to see a woman, like, have the top title in the company and also a black person have the top title in the company, that was a cool, like, thread that ran through the movie. I just wish it had been a bit more refined and made that a bit more of a central focus, not this crazy supernatural religious element.
Yeah. But then it wouldn't have been the Shudder movies that we've grown to dislike.
So overall, in terms of a rating, what would you give Dark Match out of 5?
This one gets like a hard 2 from me. Like, bordering a 1. I give it a little bit of saving just because I appreciate this nostalgia that came out of it and the way that they did grasp like a good hold of like that era in that time frame of wrestling. But yeah, other than that, this was a straight dumpster fire for me.
Yeah, I also gave this a 2. Like I said, just need a bit of refinement, but I think for wrestling fans, there's enough here that you'll have a decent time watching this. If you have no interest in wrestling and are not like a horror person that watches everything that comes out, you are gonna really regret watching this.
Yeah, just skip it. Unless you're one of those diehard horror people.
Like, watch the trailer. If it has like any sort of appeal to you, then yeah, I think you'll have like a decent time. You're not gonna turn on and switch it off after 2 seconds if you've watched the trailer and gone, oh, that interests me. You'll at least get through it. It's 90 minutes. It's easy.
Yeah.
But if you watch that trailer and go, oh, that looks terrible, you're probably correct.
Yeah.
Trust your gut on this one after watching the trailer. It's not going to do anything in the movie that it doesn't give you in the trailer. Like, if whatever emotion you get from that trailer, that's the emotion you're going to get from the movie.
Yeah.
There's no subverting your expectations in that trailer.
Yeah. Go in with low expectations.
So yeah, that's our first movie for the year. Hopefully, that is our worst movie of the year.
I was going to say, we've set the bar pretty low. I think the only way we can go is up from here at this point.
Yeah, we said that last year, and then Madam Web came out and Borderlands, which I still haven't finished.
I haven't even started Borderlands yet, and that was on my fucking list of movies that was on my roster of movies. So that's how much I was dedicated.
It's on my Amazon watch list still, and yeah, I got 20 minutes in. I was like, no.
Yeah, haven't started. I have other things on my list that are more important to me to finish.
So thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow Corrina on Instagram at Miss Corrina Renee, and you can follow me on social media at Jamie Apps Media and at Pario Magazine. The commentary booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.